Hello, crafters! Today we're delving into the art of decoupage, a fantastic way to breathe new life into ordinary items. Join me as we explore the basics of decoupage with fabric, napkins, and tissue paper. Hi, my name is Katie from Lady Red Crafting, and let's get started. We're going to start our craft out today with a recycled bottle. And this bottle was used for a balsamic, and all I'm going to do is clean it really well and take off the labels. Next, I'm going to place this on a paintable surface, and using my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, we're going to go ahead and do a nice coat of paint on all sides of this bottle. Now, while that's drying, I grabbed some fabric squares, and I got 3 pieces of fabric squares that all kind of matched. And I'm only going to cut out about a 4x4 inch square out of each one of these. This would be a great craft if you had some extra fabric lying around and you didn't know what to do with it. So I had some plastic packaging that I'm going to set these pieces of fabric down on. But if you don't have that, you can use parchment paper, wax paper, anything like that would work just fine. Now, once you have these laid out, I'm going to take my fabric Mod Podge and I'm going to lightly coat the whole entire square of these pieces of fabric. This is to allow the fabric to stiffen up just a little bit. But what is more important is that when we decide to cut these fabric squares into little squares, we do not have to worry about it fraying. So this will make nice, crisp lines on your cuts. So our next step is cutting out some squares and rectangles from these pieces of fabric. And I'm not going to cut each piece completely because I don't know if I'm going to need to cut them in other sizes once I start doing the decoupaging. So I'm just going to do about half of each one of these squares, and we're just going to cut some random rectangles out. I wanted you guys at home to see how nice this cuts, so I'm going to get a little close up here. You can see how well the lines are when you're cutting this fabric. It looks like you're cutting paper. Now that we have our fabric prepped, let's grab our bottle. And I'm taking some of my fabric Mod Podge, and I'm just going to go ahead and brush a little bit on one side of this bottle. What I'm doing is just working in little batches on the bottle with the Mod Podge and the fabric. And I'm applying usually 2-3 squares of fabric, and then I'm going to start again with the Mod Podge. And I don't really have a rhyme or reason to how I'm doing this, but I am trying to match up my fabric squares to the other fabric squares so I don't see the paint on the bottle. And one thing I noticed when I was doing the front and the back side of the bottle, it was pretty easy to just take my fingers and wipe down the piece of fabric on top of the Mod Podge. But when I was getting on the seams and the sides of the bottle, I did have to take my Mod Podge brush and just lightly brush over the top of the piece of fabric as I was doing the next step. We're just going to keep repeating this step where we're adding the Mod Podge and then the fabric until we cover the entire sides of the bottle. I did not do the bottom piece of the bottle, and I'm not going to do the neck of the bottle. Now, I may get asked this question, so I'm just going to answer it now. But if you don't have fabric Mod Podge, I have done this with regular Mod Podge, and it's worked just fine when I'm doing fabric onto a hard surface. But I do find that the fabric Mod Podge does work better when you're doing fabric to fabric. Once you have all your fabric layers onto this bottle, I'm just taking the Mod Podge and I'm going to do a nice coat over the top to seal everything in. Once your bottle is completely dry, our next step will be finishing around the neck of the bottle. And to do this, I'm going to use some gray twine, and I'm going to go ahead and just bit around the neck of the bottle. And that's all there is to it. This adorable bottle is ready to display. Since we didn't do any paint or anything inside the bottle, you could use it with some water, and you could put fresh flowers in there. Or you can just display it as it is or with some dry flowers. And if you like this project, hit that subscribe button below. Here is another quick and easy kitchen craft that you can do. Find some tissue paper that you love, this wall cling from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using this wall wood hanger that I found at the Dollar Tree in the Crafter Square section. I'm going to start out by just removing the hanger from this wood palette. Using my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, we're going to give a nice quick coat of paint over the top of this palette. And once our paint is completely dry, we'll grab some Mod Podge, and I'm using matte Mod Podge for this, and we're just going to paint a little bit of that over the top of the whole entire palette. And once that Mod Podge is completely dry, I'm taking my piece of tissue paper and I'm just going to lay that out on top of our palette. And for our next layer, I'm placing a piece of parchment paper over the top of the tissue paper. And using my heat press, I'm just going to iron our tissue paper onto that Mod Podge, and that Mod Podge will warm up and allow that tissue paper to adhere to the board. Now I'm going to grab my zip sander or a sanding block if you have one of those, and I'm just going to sand in a downward motion to remove any excess tissue paper from the board. Didn't get this next step on camera, but I did cut the wall cling into little pieces so that way it would be easier for me to position them onto the board. Now that we have our wall stickers all in position on the board, I'm going to remove them from the piece of paper and then add them to the board very carefully. And now that everything is in position, I grab my hard surface Mod Podge and a foam brush, and I put this on a paintable surface, and we're just going to go ahead and paint this with the Mod Podge to seal everything in. And I'm using the foam brush to allow for no brush strokes to show through. And once our Mod Podge is completely dry, I take a skewer and I'm just going to go ahead and poke the holes back out that were at the top of our sign so we have a way to hang this again. I wanted to give this a little bit more of an elegant hanger, so I'm using a satin ribbon for the hanger on this. And we could stop here, but I wanted to go a little bit further, and I'm going to add a quick bow to the top of this sign. So I'm just going to hot glue that right to the center at the top. And if you'd like to learn how to make this bow, I have a quick tutorial that's right in the corner here that you can go ahead and click and check that out. And here is what our little sign looks like. I think this is so cute, and it's also useful to have in the kitchen. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you're looking to level up your time management skills and really optimize your productivity, I recommend checking out Skillshare. Currently, I'm taking a class called Chaos to Calm, Google Calendar Workshop for Creatives. This class taught me how to prioritize tasks, break down big projects, manage my time more effectively, and one of the biggest takeaways for me was learning how to block out time for deep work that makes all the difference in staying organized. Whether you're looking to improve your productivity, master a new skill, or dive into creative pursuits, Skillshare has something for everyone. Skillshare offers classes in tons of categories, from next level knitting, paper flower crafts, upcycling home decor, or sewing your first quilt. Whatever skill you're working on, Skillshare can help you get there. And here's the best part. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. This video is sponsored by Skillshare, an online learning platform with thousands of classes to help you develop new skills. Stay organized, learn new skills, and take control of your time with the help of Skillshare. I'll see you in the next class. Join today. Did you know you can decoupage on a non-traditional surface? Something that may be lumpy and not smooth? Well, this basket, we are going to decoupage with this beautiful flower napkin that I got from HomeGoods. So I'm going to start out by just opening up this napkin, and I'm going to flip this over and remove the back 2 layers of the napkin. And I find using a little piece of painter's tape helps remove those back 2 layers. Now, once we have just the top layer of the napkin, we are going to take that napkin and try to fit it around our basket. Now, grabbing a pencil, I am going to lift this basket up, and I'm taking my pencil and I'm drawing a small line on half of the napkin around the white frame of the basket. Now I lay out my napkin and I grab a little container of some water, and I'm going to take a paintbrush and I'm just going to paint the line that I drew with the pencil. And once we have our water line painted, I'm going to just lightly tear the napkin on that first half. And then I take my little heat tool and I'm just going to dry the water that's on the napkin there before I move on to my next step. Once your napkin is completely dry again, I'm going to take this napkin and I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other half of this napkin. We grab that pencil and we're going to draw our line. And once we have our line drawn, I'm going to take a paintbrush and I'm going to paint some water right where I drew the line so that I know where to tear the napkin. Now, using my paintbrush, I'm going to remove any straight edges from the sides of my napkin because I want to make sure that this napkin fades into the basket beautifully. And once I'm satisfied with all the tears in the napkin, I do go back in with my heat tool and make sure that the napkin is completely dry. Now let's go back to our basket. I want to make sure that this napkin is really bright on our basket, so I am going to add a little bit of plaster paint to the basket underneath that white line that was already there on the basket. Now, this doesn't need to be perfect, it's just going there to help brighten up the napkin when we decoupage it on. Now, once our paint has completely dried, I grab my Mod Podge, and I'm just using the classic Mod Podge in matte. And I'm taking my little napkin here, and I'm just going to set that over the top of my basket. Now I grab my Mod Podge brush, and I'm just going to decoupage over the top of this napkin. And I'm just going to paint that Mod Podge all over the top of that napkin on the basket. So once you're done applying all of your Mod Podge, we're just going to keep this basket set down upside down for about 2 hours to dry. So once our basket has completely dried, I go ahead and I start tearing off that napkin around the perimeter of our basket. And if I didn't mention it earlier, when I put the Mod Podge on, I only went to that white stripe on the basket. So that's why the napkin's able to tear so easily around the perimeter there. And you can see that I'm pushing my thumb down where I would like to tear the napkin just so that nothing accidentally comes off from the bottom part of this basket before we seal it. So now here is what our basket is starting to look like. What we're going to do next here is grab our Mod Podge, and I'm going to take that Mod Podge and we're just going to brush that around the perimeter of our basket just to make sure that napkin stays into place before we seal everything. And then we set this aside to dry. And once that is completely dry, we're going to come back around with our Mod Podge and do a sealing coat. And I'm not going to show this on camera, but I did do 2 coats of the Mod Podge to seal everything in. And here is what our final basket looks like. I just love how this turns out. I think it just gives a unique spring look to our basket. This might be a good item to put in your living room so you can put your remote controls in there so you don't lose them, or your earbuds. This could also be used as a napkin display holder or anything else that you might find a use for baskets. So let me know what you might use it for. Please drop a comment down below. And if you're enjoying this content, please hit that subscribe or like button below. It really helps my channel grow. Thank you. Easy craft is sure to delight. We're going to start out with a canvas makeup bag, and I did get these on Amazon, so if you would like to learn more about them, I'll put a link in my description box below. But I'm just going to open this up and add a little piece of cardboard inside. Now I found these beautiful napkins on Amazon, and I'm going to go ahead and remove the back 2 layers of the napkin so that we can decoupage the top piece onto our canvas. And to remove the back 2 layers, I do use a little piece of painter's tape to assist. This step I did not get on camera, but I did use my fabric Mod Podge, and I went ahead and painted a nice coat of Mod Podge over the top of this canvas bag. Now you'll see me taking that napkin and just lightly pressing that down onto the canvas bag. And I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of cling wrap, and I have a little roller here that I'm just going to roll everything down flat to make sure there are no wrinkles. And once we assure that the bag is completely dry, I'm going to take my scissors and just trim the excess napkin off of the canvas bag. Let's put our canvas bag on a paintable surface, and using our fabric Mod Podge, we're going to seal the napkin onto the canvas bag. And while the Mod Podge is still wet, I found this adorable lace trim at the Dollar Tree, and we're just going to attach that to the top of the canvas bag. For my final step, I'm going to take that same fabric Mod Podge, and we'll just use that to do a nice layer over the top of the lace trim to make sure everything stays into place. Once everything dries, we're going to go ahead and remove that piece of cardboard from inside that makeup case. And now we have this beautiful customizable makeup case that you can give as a gift or use for yourself. And I like how this fabric Mod Podge works. It just is very flexible and it doesn't feel too stiff on the top of the bag. This is a great little craft if you want to do a quick gift for a friend or if you're just learning how to craft. We're going to start out with this cute magnet from the Dollar Tree. I place it on a paintable surface, and using my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, we're going to give a nice coat of paint over the top of this magnet. And to cover this completely, I did need to do 2 coats of paint. For our next step, we're going to use this beautiful tissue paper that I got at the Dollar Tree and some hard surface Mod Podge. We're going to take a paintbrush and just paint that Mod Podge over the top of the magnet. And while the Mod Podge is still wet, I'm going to lay a piece of tissue paper over the top of the Mod Podge. And for our next layer, we'll use a piece of cling wrap over the top. And I'm using a little Mod Podge roller here to just roll out all of the wrinkles, but you can also smooth this with your hands as well. Quick thank you to all those viewers out there. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button below. And once everything is dry, I go ahead and grab my Mod Podge again and would do a nice coat of Mod Podge over the top of the tissue paper. And once that is dry, I take my zip sander, or sanding block would work great, and we just sand off the edges of this tissue paper. Now I'm going to take a wood skewer and I'm just going to poke the hole back through on the top of the magnet. Now let's add some embellishments. And using my hot glue, I'm going to add this quick bow to the top of my cutting board. Now I found these adorable buttons at Ben Franklin the other day. And I'm going to use the little spoon set, and we're going to just take the little piece off the back side of the button, and I'm just hot gluing that as an embellishment on our little magnet. I did find a package of very similar buttons on Amazon, so I'll put a link in my description box below in case you don't have a Ben Franklin by you. Now here's the finished magnet. This turns out so cute. It's a great little addition for your kitchen, or it'd be a nice gift for a friend. Thank you for taking the time to watch today. I really appreciate each and every one of you, and if you'd like to see more crafts, click on this next video. And as always, please remember, craft more, stress less.